So I was in China for 3 months ago, and it's really interesting to see how space syntax can be applied from various cultures. For 1.5 years ago, I had the most nice experience. It was a PhD student from Cairo who invited me home to his family home. And he comes from a farmer home. His mother could not read or write. And then he invited me to their home, and then with space syntax term, he explained like how the family meet and how the sidebar, how the visitors were received. Just with the space syntax language. And it was like an eye-opener for me, like we have a common language of space. That's why we can communicate with one another, independent of cultures. So that was a very nice experience. I'm going to just log in because the computer just fall asleep. It's not bad. Yes, it works. What I'm going to talk today is about theory building in space syntax. Because at the 9th Space Syntax Symposium, Professor Bill Hillier was asked, what are the current challenges in space syntax? Because we have now worldwide research results, and we have a large amount of data, and through the GIS we can operate with big data. And also because the method is context and culture independent, so we have a lot of database. And so he said that the biggest challenge now is we have to build theories. And at the 10th symposium for 1.5 years ago in London, the first approaches were presented. And Hillier presented more from a social anthropological perspective. Like, he asked, what are cities for? And the conclusion was to create contact. And then there were some other researchers, Lars Marcus, Daniel Koch from Sweden, and Sam Griffith from the UK. They approach it from a more urban sociology perspective. And my contribution, what I'm going to do, is to approach it from elementary theory of science, to use model logics. And of course, the most known theory we have, it's the theory of the natural movement economic process, where we know that the spatial configuration, it affects the movement flow from everywhere to everywhere else, and also attraction, where you see the shops. And we've seen it in research results worldwide, where you have a high spatial integration on various scale levels. You see like the highest presence of people, and also you see a large concentration of shops. That is what you see. Oh, here is my approach. What I'm going to use here to see how do you build theories basically? How to go further? What should we go on? What is the limitation? I will use model logics. And there is a researcher called Roy Biskra. He had a critical realistic model. There were lacking some parts in that. And then I used the model logic from a Finnish philosopher. His name is Georg Henrik von Wright. You can say it from Bright. And we have a Norwegian philosopher called Sigurd Wieland Troye. He's not so well known. And he writes also a book, How Do We Evaluate Research? And what I do, I combine all three of them. And von Wright, the Finnish philosopher, he says also very clear, we have already two main scientific traditions. The one is a positivistic approach, and there we explain the relationship between cause and effect. And the natural science operate much with this. And then we have a hermeneutic approach, and that's about understanding the relationship between intention behind a cause. And then the effects is not clear. And that we have in the human and the social science. And then very simple because we architects like images. So you see, like in the natural science, you have a very clear relationship between cause and effect. And the eye is discipline. Intentions behind the cause, that is more in the social and human science. So we try to look at the intention behind something happening, but the effect, it's not always so clear. And this tradition, these explanatory models, as was said now in the opening introduction, space syntax connects various scientific domains. So we are situated. We need both methods. And in order to explain or try to elaborate what it is, so I use the model of Biskra. He explains that you have 3 levels of describing research. The one is the think level, you think about things. And then also other thing is about what you see, you make some observations. And that is like, you try to understand what is reality. I've always been, one thing that really keep me going is like, I always want to ask, what is a good city? Not how you should plan a good city, but what is a good city? So I have some ideas about it and I see something, but how to make science out of it? And of course, in Europe, we have a sort of various approaches, and particularly from the French approach, what you know, cognito ergo sum from the Descartes. I think, therefore I am. So a rationalistic perspective is like, what I think, that is reality. If I have thoughts, idea about reality, that is from the French tradition. Then you have a more idealistic perspective. So I think I see something, I have some thoughts about what I see, and that is what is. And you see it also much more from German research, from Hegel and this kind of traditions. And now you have the empirical approach, it's more from the Anglo-Saxons. That what I see, that is. If you think about like Newton, like you drop an apple and it fell down on a certain speed, measured, you can see, that is. It's more the empirical approach. But what Biskra say, in fact, a good research project has aspects of all of these 3 approaches. So you call it a critical realistic view, we call it. So the researcher is a thinker, a critical thinker, inventor, discoverer. So you reflect over your things, you make some analysis, you interpret, you observe, you do everything. And space syntax have all of these aspects. So this critical realistic view is like, the is part is divided into the general part and actual part. That is what he says. And also when you build theory, empirical data, the knowledge, the testing, all this interaction, that is very important. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to see where is space syntax located in this. And the one thing is, when you analyze the city as an object, just pure looking at the spatial relationships, you go and make observations. It seems to have a very positivistic approach. So here is a city before and after they got the ring road. And you see like how the pattern of shops has changed. So then you have, of course, another tradition is the urban morphology. You know that you have a group from Italy, you have a group from the school, Versailles School, and then you have in the UK, in Birmingham, with Jeremy Whiteham. And then make analysis of more the historical of the city. How did it get the form it has today? They're looking at sort of collective memory of the city. That some artifacts are more important than others, and that's why they constitute further development. And the thing is, like, when you use this 2 research tradition, what von Blick said, the cause effect, you are predicting the consequences. But the intention behind a cause, it's about understanding a phenomenon. and the space syntax are dealing with both of them. And in order to understand these two traditions, when you go to the logic, the model logics of it, say in the hermeneutic tradition, you are dealing with the necessary condition as to why something becomes possible. What were the necessary conditions? But in the positivism, you just need to find the sufficient condition why something became necessary. And a lot of words, you know, I will show you with examples. That will be better. And Troyer, he have a model where he talks about explanatory power, the relationship between the cause P and the effect Q. So, on the think level, you think that there's a relationship between P and Q, cause and effect. And you see also a particular cause and a particular effect. And another particular cause and another. P1, P2, cause, Q1. And on the is level, you have a sort of the general thing, but you see like, okay, there's a relationship between cause and effect, and you see actual, you see in all causes of that kind, you see all the same kind of effects. That is what you see. And now I will look at the explanatory power of one research. It's like Birmingham, before it got the ring road. So this is Birmingham from 1750. You see the High Street, the Bullring Square. You see the street here. And this is like how it was before the Second World War. And and then it was bombed, and then the rebuilding the city. And you see the Bullring Square. This is still there. And suddenly, we built a ring road. You see that the Bullring Square is cut up with modern planning, you know, flyovers and so, ring road with a highway standard with subways and so on. Here's the image of Bullring Square before the ring road. That is during the construction of the ring road. That is after the ring road. And here you see the Bullring Square and the tower. And now, it was such a disaster. And nobody wanted to go in the city center, because the city center was just separated from its surrounding. And then they realized we had to do something, and now they reconnect Bullring Square to the historical center with a mega shopping mall. And that was really flourishing. It's just packed with people. And that was after I finished my research. And here you see like 4 cases. UK city, British cities before the ring road. You see where you have high integration. You see the white pattern of shops. Follow the white, mostly integrated street. Then you get the ring road, and you see in different degree you just segregate the central core. Here you see Birmingham. You see the Bullring is really cut off. And here you see the location pattern of shops. You get clustered car-based shopping malls. You drive from the ring road into the parking garage, and after the shops are closed, the city center is dead. And here you see Birmingham. This is Bullring shopping center. It was closed down because it lost its central position, so it tear it down. So now I go to the positivistic tradition. How am I going to explain this? And in the positivist tradition, it's a very clear relationship between cause and effect. So what you see in the Birmingham case, you see the effect. First you identify the effect. You see that the spatial configuration of the street grid is changed. And of course, because there's a new movement that's been established. Here's the ring road. So in Birmingham, you can use it as a particular case, and you can easily generalize from it. So you see like the integration value on the main shopping street has changed the last 15 years. And the cause is because of the ring road. It just segregated the core. So it dragged all the integration away from the town center. That is very, you see, sounds reasonable. But now we want to go more deeper into that. We apply the sufficient and the necessary condition. So I color all what positivism is in the blue and what is hermeneutics in red. So I'm going to try the sufficient condition. Like P is a sufficient condition for Q. A new ring road or new road link is a sufficient condition for a change in the spatial configuration. If I track I do also the necessary. A new road link is a necessary condition for a change in the spatial configuration. You see that the last one is redundant. No, the first one it sounds okay. So, and then we're going to do with two conditions. Maybe we have a P and an R. And we say that P and R alone is a sufficient condition that Q will occur. And if P and Q occur together, Q will be there for sure too. So maybe a new ring road, new road link, or maybe you block a road, you build a wall like Berlin. Maybe that's alone. They are alone, but it's sufficient that they occur. But also when they occur together. So they will change the spatial configuration of the system. So in a complex necessary condition, P and R are really logically separated from each other, while a complex sufficient condition is a conjunction of phenomena. So a complex necessary condition presents itself as this structure. So you can play on really with a lot of complex formulas. So you can experiment with that. And the thing is, when you work with the city as an object, you think why necessary? Why was it necessary when this happened? You need the sufficient condition. Why was it necessary? That happened, that road blockage, or the new ring road, that was sufficient, that it changed the whole spatial configuration of the city. And how things become possible? Why possible? Then the necessary condition are crucial. And I will show you later with an example from the hermeneutic tradition. So, the other thing here is like a new road link is a sufficient condition for spatial configuration. The other one is redundant. You can keep it out. So, when you have cause effect, I always have a thing you need counterfactuals. You twist it around. You think about what would happen if it not took place. So if a new ring road or a new road link were not constructed, no changes will take place. No configuration changes. It sounds true. So, no spatial changes in the urban grid implies no configuration changes. It means like space syntax have a high degree of predictability. I always say if somebody come with a very fussy paper, I say try to say the opposite, twist it around. Does it make sense? Now it's very popular like complexity or the complex city. I say what is then a simple city? It's like you twist it around. So in the positivistic tradition, you explain the cause and effect. And what is so good with space syntax, it's context independent. It is focused on the city, the physical thing as a city. And the spatial analysis are separated from the meaning. It's completely, we're just dealing with spatial relationships, nothing more than that. And when you have a high degree of predictability, you can do theory building. And that is why the theory of the natural movement economic process is so well established. So, when we remember this model, I'm going to put, like the ring road case, for example, and put it into that model. And it seems like you can make a very general explanation. You can use the Birmingham place. You can put it into that. You have thoughts about the new road link and the configuration changes, and what you see, you go to do analysis of the city, you register where the shops were. If you're lucky, you can get the traffic flow data from the past and now. If you do that, that's really good. you have really powerful empirical stuff, and also you see what is actual. And it means like, you can start to predict if a city are planning to build a ring road, you can start to predict what will the effects be. Will it segregate the core? Then it will maybe reduce the vitality of the shopping area. So, that is the strength of space syntax. Now, we're going to the hermeneutic tradition. And it was developed sort of the counter-reaction for 120 years ago in Europe. It's like a counter-reaction on the positivistic. Because we are dealing with human intention and meaning, and things are more complex. And also you see the social science and the human science was established, things start to develop. But what is in order to explain, you're looking for the intention behind the cause. And you require complex dependent situations. So in space syntax research, when you're dealing with social rationality, that requires a hermeneutic approach. And here I will use an example. It's context dependent. I take one research project in Gouda in the Netherlands. And it's a social housing area, and you have a lot of immigrants from Morocco living here, and also very low income Dutch families. And they're suffering first social problems. The bus driver refused to drive through the area because it's a very high criminality. And you see, most of the houses are like they're in big, 4 stores social housing, and then you have a few row houses with the front yard. Here you see our space syntax analysis, and in that circle there, you have a group of youngsters gathering together there. And you just go there, and it's very unpleasant to walk around because they are very aggressive. And I'm going to use this case. So what you see is when you try to explain it generally, and that's the biggest error people tend to do when they use space syntax in explaining prime and antisocial behavior, you see that effect. You see a high occurrence of antisocial behavior taking place in post-war neighborhoods. And of course, try to explain the post-war housing areas have a very spacious segregated street network. But it sounds like you're predictive. You said that all neighborhoods with a segregated street network will cause antisocial behavior and crime. It's not good. So, I go directly to the Oosterwijk in Gouda. You see that effect, you see they're suffering from high number of antisocial behavior on the backside of the shopping center. And you see, and then you analyze it, yes, it has a very segregated street network, and no windows, no doors, constituted street, low degree of indivisibility. And the thing is like, in order to explain this, you have to go to the intention behind the thing. That's the most difficult thing. You have to look for the meaning behind it, the meaning about the cause. And also you have to find the necessary condition, the only necessary that causes a certain thing taking place. And that's why you need a sort of teleological explanation. What you do, you go back in time to explain why did it happen in that case. So you look for a non-human case, a non-human effect, that's what you see. But you see that exponents is somehow dealing with the human cause and the human effect to explain this change. So I try like, okay, the Oosterwijk got constructed with a segregated street network. And I think the idea was to implement this, the principles from the 1933 CIM conference. And also, the other thing, they realized this principle, you can provide very cheap dwellings for people. And so on. When you follow the principle, these things, you make a whole chain, and then you get segregated street network, and then you see occurrence of antisocial behavior. This looks very simple. You have to make more at once, because it's a change of occurrence that took place. You see that you have inspiration of modern movement, you have a housing shortage, from there you make cheap housing, and then the CIM conference, you know, like we use the principles, and then we construct this housing area with the segregated street north, and then you get the high occurrence of antisocial behavior. So, and also you have to look like the social composition of the dwelling, you know, people with low income, high unemployment, there's nothing to do in the street, so when you're going to explain how that is, you see that the sufficient condition is not enough. You need to use the necessary conditions. So the only necessary explanation I can find is like the will, the people, the intention to implement the CIM principle, spatial principle. That was a necessary condition that this neighborhood get a very segregated street network. So you can also start to make very complex sufficient conditions and also a complex necessary condition and go on. The modeler is a whole thing. I'm not going to torture you with all the logics, but anyway, you can go on forever. But what is very clear is in the hermeneutics, you need to find the necessary condition between the intentions of a cause, not the cause and effect. That is what you need to do in the hermeneutics. And also the thing is hermeneutics, counterfactual, very difficult because it's so context dependent. That means you cannot predict. So if you use counterfactuals, if you think that if the area did not have a segregated street network, then this antisocial behavior and this loafering youngsters would not appear. It's very difficult because the social composition of dwellers can overrun the spatial layout. So it is very difficult. The only thing you can find, maybe towards, is like if the will was not to implement this principle from the CIM conference, then the neighborhood would not get the segregated street network. If you know that that was very necessary, well, very difficult. Could be other things. So, hermeneutics is about understanding the intention of a cause. So it means like, you can only find the understanding from already established areas. You find the explanation on that through the understanding of the intention. That is the only thing you can do when you're dealing with social rationality. So, I realized the model of Trojan, it was not suitable for hermeneutic explanations. So I redeveloped it. So you have to find the necessary meaning and intention behind the P. You cannot say anything about the effect Q. And also what you see, you can find in documents about the planning document, what were the intention of the plan, and you see a particular effect, Q, you see segregated street network. But you cannot explain the relationship. And also you have in there what is what you see, okay, you have the documentation, you see the thing, and you have some thoughts and reflection about it, and that is the hermeneutic thing. And also you have heard about hermeneutic circles. What you do is like, you try to understand the part and the whole. It's a sort of process where you try to understand what was going on, reflect upon things. But you cannot predict, that's very difficult. So here I squeezed in the explanatory power of the how that, just to see like, how does it work? So that was some very happy stuff theory of science. The next question is back to my main question. What are the challenges in theory building in space syntax? What do we need to be aware of? We have already three, but the two first ones are very established. The one is the theory of the natural movement economic process. The other one is in Hilliard's book, The Sociological, no, the Space is the Machine, chapter 8, the theory of spatial combinatorics. It's a more hidden chapter. But that is really dealing with the syntax object. And the third one, that is what I'm working on, the theory of the natural urban transformation process. So they were using GIS and big data trying to explain that. What we're looking for is high degree of predictability. It's useful to test out your design proposals, impact assessment. You make planning strategies. You make sure, like, will the plan be according to my intentions? Let's explain the social and what you plan, the economic and the movement impact of your plans. You see that, will it be a vital city center or will it be dead after the plan? And I will come later to, because when you deal with movement and economic activities, where the intentions are unambitious, it's about profit maximizing. To be, if they're very unambitious, it's very easy to predict the effects of a cost. It's very easy. And that's why this theory of the natural movement economics, shop owners, they want to earn as much money as possible. They always look for the most integrated streets. And the most integrated street you have also where people move. Here is the theory of building here, the theory of spatial combination of combinatorics. What is this at the top? You know that if you place an object more in the center, it segregates more than at the edge. That's the principle of centrality. And you have the principle of extension. Oops. Then you see that if you place object in the middle of a bigger space than a smaller space, it segregates even more. And here also, continuous lines segregate more than when you have permeable lines. And here, you see, like, when you have a curved line, it segregates even more than a long. It's a principle of compactness. So here I just wrote these 4 principles in words for those who are not so into mathematics. So you see that this, they're dealing with the city as an object, just spatial relationship, principle. They're very easy to predict. Here's the theory, what I'm currently working on, and I give a critique of the current planning things, because we plan like, you know, form, follow, function. We say that we want this function, and then we plan the spatial thing around it. But the thing is, like, the street network seems to steer building density and also function, whether it's a monofunctional area or a multifunctional area. And it's all driven by the street network configuration. So we have been trying with GIS data, analyze new towns, old towns in the Netherlands, in China, and we see that there's a correlation. And here I just show, like, what is the predictability of space syntax. Here are 4 alternatives, where in this the Dutch city of Leiden, where you want to make a connection between the 2 highways going outside the city, just through the city. And you see, like, how will it shape potentials for new centralities? That's the biggest thing in the whole region of Leiden. And now we go the other thing, because of people. I want to make a theory on space and crime. You cannot. Because you're dealing with the rationality, social rationality of very complex things. You have to do understandings on space and crime. If you want to make a theory on space and culture, you make understandings on space and culture. And theory of space and social life, it's understanding. And somehow, that's also what I'm currently working with. Let's say you analyze a city, and you see, you want to say, like, okay, this is a spatial integration. You see the movement flow, but, well, there's no shops there. And there you have what you call political and organizational constraints. In the Netherlands has a very strong regional planning system. So along the ring roads in Amsterdam and Utrecht, you have no near shopping malls, because it's stated in the planning law. Or it could be an area where there are potentials to build an economic center, but it could be 3 municipality border, and one of them want to be like a very agriculture village, and they want to see a cow in the landscape, and no metropolitan development, say we say in Europe. So the other two movements, they won't. But another thing who can distort the theory of the natural momentum is ethnical conflict. This I discovered 2 or 3 weeks ago in a paper we wrote for the Space Syntax Symposium. And here we have the city of Jaffa and Tel Aviv in 1944. And of course, you have the Tel Aviv in the north, here, and you have the Jaffa in the end. And then we use space syntax. But there were no physical borders. There were more paper borders. And it means like the conflict between the Arabs and the Jews was so strong. So what we do, we just make a sort of paperboard, we cut them off. And then we saw that on this map, we saw that centrality was taking place when we just injected invisible borders on that and then say, yes, ethnical conflicts can make sure that the Arabs and the Jews, they didn't want to travel to each other's areas, they stick to the south. So ethnical conflicts can also affect, I call it distorting, the theory of the natural movement of the process. So, it's a lot of research for dealing on society space. We have a social anthropological approach, we have a historical approach. The archaeologists start really to show big interest in space syntax. We have urban planning approach, you have psychological approach, and many, many more. I just have a whole, just some examples. So, it's just, when you're dealing with human intentions, when the intention is unambitious, it's used, then you can use a positivistic approach. So everything with economic rationality, profit maximizing, you can predict the effects of your planning. Other kind of rationality requires a hermeneutic approach. So space syntax are in both fields. So spatial model, city as an object, you can use positivistic approach. And when you're dealing with society, you're somehow in both fields. So that is the thing. And the last example I will use, you probably heard about Billier's theory or understanding, he tried with the generic function of cities. And he talks about the foreground network and the background network. So the foreground network, Billier said, that generates all the microeconomic activities. And he said, you see it all over in the world. You see like where the bazaar or the souk is, in Persian, Arab cities. It follows the high local integration, like various integration, or somehow located along the main global and local integration. So you can explain economic activities. You see those in Chinese cities. You see it in Scandinavian cities with very low building density. You see it in American cities, South American. But when here you talk about the background network, that represents the various cultural local patterns. And that contributes to understanding on the relationship between culture and space. So that is, you see that Miller's challenge, we need to build theories. I say that sometimes it's very good to go to elementary theory of space, but my approach was more from maybe European contribution. The Chinese people have a different philosophy. Maybe you have also from your culture. So I say the challenge is that up to you. Try to use what you have in your tradition and contribute to build theories. And that was my presentation. Thank you.
So we're going to see if there are some questions. We're going to take a couple of questions. Thank you very much for your introduction. I'm Dr. Fahri, professor in architecture, and at the same time the dean of the Faculty of Exact Sciences and Sciences of Nature and Life. I know that the theory of Laplace mathematics is considered as the main important source of inspiration for behavior in the production of space syntax. So it's possible to consider the addition of the social aspect to the theory of graphs as sufficient to understand the social behavior of users of space, I mean architectural and human spaces. And what about economic aspect and environmental aspect, the two elements of sustainability? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your very interesting question, because what space syntax is really applied mathematics on spatial relationship. What I really like with the method is that you can measure spatial relationship independent on social and economic data. And I said that research on built environment is just in the overlapping of the natural science, the human science, and the social science. And that's also been the challenge, the most interesting thing with space syntax, but also a problem, because to get research funding. Because the sociologists found it too mathematic. Those from the natural science find it too simple, looks like sociological or more psychological. And the psychologists who are dealing with the human side, no, it's more into social science. So it's been very difficult to deal with. What I really like to understand, what are the scientific background of this method, is just to go back to elementary theory of science, just to the logics, and also and to see like what's going on there. And still, I say that still is a lot that needs to be done. So I felt that my contribution is a small part, but I use a different approach than those who get lost in the urban sociology. I say lost because the problem in urban sociology, they lack concise definition of space. So that's why I always say to people, when you want to do something new, it's define the elements you're operating with. And that I like with Bill Hillier. It's like the first thing, the success of space syntax is a concise definition of space. So you're dealing with extrinsic property of space, just built form and function. When you go to the urban morphology, you're dealing with built form and meaning. So you see, like, what was this artifact in the city? What kind of quality memory has it for the inhabitants? And that's very difficult to predict the future. So I say that it's still a lot that needs to be done, a lot. But the problem also is like a lot of urban sociologists, they are not interested in the spatial aspects. So I think it's like we need to approach it from both sides. I will say one discipline where I really like to work with is archaeologists. So I was at the archaeologist workshop, and it was a workshop, how do we analyze Maya cities? And we as architects and planning, we are very trained in thinking solutions, to find solutions. But the archaeologists, they do the opposite. They want to reconstruct the cities. And the thing is, like, they have the walls and the spaces, and they ask, like, what can we say about the past when we use space syntax? You see, Pompeii, I analyzed Pompeii just for fun, to show for the archaeologists. I was there in 2007, and like, wow, I want to analyze this. Just drop the map, process through the software, and then just present it for archaeologists just for fun. And then we're looking, wow, we presume that these areas were the shopping street, but we weren't sure. But this is very interesting. And so they said, can we publish your work? We're working on a book on Roman cities. And we need the article very fast, within 3 weeks. I say, okay, I can write something, but then I need somebody to correct my English. Just properly, and then it got published. It was the most prestigious, but also the most fastest article. And since then, I get invited by the archaeologists. And it's very challenging for me because they have a different way of approaching the problem than what I do. But the funny thing is, like, what we all in common have is this kind of space we're operating with, how to analyze the extrinsic property of space. We're not looking at the beautiful temple we find there, or the form, the language of it. We're just looking at where is it located in the city? How is its spatial configuration? What kind of rituals do they have? What happened? And for archaeologists, in order to try to explain like economic activities in the city, is very dependent on the research from a present context. So we know that already after worldwide research, shops locate themselves along the most integrated streets. And so we can think in the future, what are the consequences of our plan? What can we say for sure and what not? But also backwards, like how was it in the past? But sometimes I get the archaeologists coming to me with a map with a city with a fragment here, fragment there, fragment there, fragment there, and the half, more than half is missing. And I say, how do I analyze this? Sometimes I say, find another city, because it's too fragmented. I cannot say anything. So it was a very broad question, maybe very broad answer, very possible.
Thank you. Will you turn off the microphone?
Yeah.
So, thank you. You have another question.
Thank you very much for your coming and your interesting lecture. I want to ask this question. In the process of project design, space syntax literature says that models, space syntax models, give us results of our decisions. Give us results of our decisions on form. But I think these results concern only particular phenomena like movement, crime, economical aspects, etc. So, is there models to explain effects on our decisions, but by taking into account the complexity of the reality, or something that can be near of that? Or if I conclude my question: is space syntax sufficient to explain all form effects? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think it's some people, I was working in the Netherlands for many years, and I met two kind of people. The one who think that space syntax could solve everything, and the other one who did not understand it, and therefore it's nothing, it's crap. So I think it's like you have to be aware, some part can be explained, the other not. But the thing is with space syntax is, one thing, the definition of space is already established, that he did in the 70s. And also he became more precise in the 80s. And then you have the methodological development. And it's, at the moment, it's developing so fast. It's still in a very process of developing. And then the third one is like the empirical testing. And how you get the data from social economic life is up to your fantasy or how you can get the data. The most interesting research I had was with an MSc student of me from Banda Aceh. And it was 3-4 years after the tsunami. And he managed to get the mortality rate very urban village. The cities in Bangladesh consist of small village consisting of 1 or 2 main streets and some side streets. And then he saw, you know, he had a, maybe I have a map here, I can show it here. And he managed to get the mortality rate, and then he saw that in some villages, there were higher mortality rates than others, like 10% higher in some villages. If I can find this folder, PowerPoint, I think it was the last one. Yes, here it is. I can find the map. There's the, maybe it's here, let's see. More in the beginning. There it is. No, it was somewhere here. Yes, here it is. This is better. Make it bigger. Here in Bangladesh, you see that? You see here, here's the tsunami. He saw that there were 2 villages, you only had 300 and 500 people who died. And the other was extreme high numbers, 3,000, more than 3,000, sometimes almost up to 4,000 people. So he went to the village and started interviewing 15 families to talk, how do you experience the tsunami? And how do you escape? And he said that it was a very labyrinth. The street network was really like this. And the last thing they remember, you know that suddenly they have a memory loss what happened because we're in panic. And the last thing they remember was they were ending up in a dead-end street. While in the other village you have a grid network street so they could escape from the tsunami. And then you have to work very interdisciplinary. So we went to the literature of the cognitive psychologists, space in panic. And when people get in panic, the visual orientation matters. And also the 15 families, I say that we saw tsunami coming there, we fled in that direction. And then when the street network was labyrinthic, they got lost. All rational thinking disappeared. So, and the interesting is like the tsunami engineers say that if you have a really grid street network, you get a very high water speed from the tsunami. But these results show that also people get lost in panic. They don't find a way out. So you have a contradictory view. So if you have a labyrinthic street network, the water speed is very slow. But if you have a grid map, the water speed is fast. But then people get lost. So it's like up to your fantasy, how to get the data, how to gather it, it's so much possibilities. And also sometimes, when my other lecture will give tomorrow morning, I will show you how I developed a spatial tool, because it was missing in my research question. I developed my microscope tools. I developed because the tools were missing. I saw a problem. And it turned out to be very important. And now people start applying around the world. I developed 10 years ago. So I said that if you see they're missing some things, I think it has also to do with more Anglo-Saxon scientific tradition. You have to focus on one complex problem after the other. You find that, hey, I'm missing some knowledge on that one. And then you can contribute to fill the white paper, what is still missing. See, it's still a lot that needs to be done. So it's just up to you what you are interested in. And I think it's you cannot, in Norway we say you cannot lift mountains, but you can lift stones. So bit by bit by stone to contribute to making a big mountain. So that's my answer.
Thank you. We have a technical question.
Thank you. I speak in English.
Yeah, somebody was
C'est-à-dire, concernant l'environnement, elle est située sur le plan géographique, et tout ça veut dire une situation un peu spéciale. Donc, est-ce que vous avez essayé d'utiliser cette approche Special Tax pour résoudre le problème d'espace extérieur au niveau des cités hollandaises. Quand on savait que, ça veut dire il y a toujours des crues, des débordements de la mer et qui touchent l'ensemble du pays, ça veut dire la Hollande. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm going to try to translate. I mean, he's concerned about Netherlands, and he's talking about the land levels that is below the sea level. And is your work taking consideration this, I mean, topography concern or problem in space syntax analysis, maybe for the housing districts?
It's an interesting question because I've been a lot of presentations, but in the Netherlands has a very strong water management system. So I pay every year, I think it's about $3,000 in water management tax. So it means like they're very good in, when you go to the coast of the Netherlands, there are various restrictions on where you're allowed to walk because the sand dunes are protected. And they have plans also to improve it. The biggest problem is not so much from the sea, but it's from the rivers. So if you have the river Rhine, you know they have a lot of curves like this, and they start to cut the route, but that makes also the water speed faster. So, and then the water comes with very high speed when the snow is melting in the Alps, all the way from Switzerland and Germany and into the Netherlands. The biggest problem they have is on the river. So now, nearby a town called Nijmegen, I think they removed some dwellings from the area because, and they made an extra route for the water. So they are very much in what you call in land use planning. They're very good in the management of the dwellers. That some areas you should not build because of flooding risk. So the biggest flooding problem we have in some areas along the big rivers, but now they're really improving it. It's more landscaping and water management. So I never heard about, the only crisis we had in the Netherlands was the flood of 1953, where the province of Zeeland, when the dikes broke and all houses went underwater. And after that they built this incredible engineering from the 60s where the river go out with the way of dealing with water. And also in Rotterdam they have a huge gate, and every year they close it for testing that the mechanism work. And then every time you see a lot of foreign students at the TU Delft, they stand to watch this. They go very slowly. I've seen it once. So it's more engineering thing. The Banda Aceh case, the student was asking when they rebuilt Banda Aceh, it's like, if you don't have the money to build tsunami walls like in Japan, how can you rebuild the city according to that? So here is the plan he made with escape route of the area of Banda Aceh. So it's just a suggestion how should we do. And then he said like you have the two contradictory view between the tsunami engineers and also our empirical results. Twist the grid. But the thing is like when people are in panic, you have 1 to 2 direction change. They have to be on the main route where they can see a higher top where they can escape on. So that was the principle we applied for the Banda Aceh case. So I think it's like for the Netherlands, they have the money and the engineering to solve it in this way. So I see also when you have heavy rainfalls, the water drainage system, they have a law that 17% of the surface should consist of water. Because when it rains, the water goes into that to catch up surplus water, or when you get ocean water coming over, so how to canalize it, to distribute it. And then you have the windmills to pump it up. So there's a whole engineer. I don't know so much about that. It's more engineering question.
Thank you.
Bonjour professeur et merci pour votre présentation et soyez la bienvenue. Ma question, qu'en est-il de la troisième dimension pour l'aspect Space Syntax? Et quels sont les outils que vous avez utilisés dans votre recherche?
She's asking about the three dimensions in space syntax analysis and what are the tools if you have, worked with this on your studies.
I haven't worked so much on three-dimensional, but I know there was a software developed at the TU Delft for 10 years ago. But the problem is that it was never used because you need, when you make an actual map, you just draw the lines, in the city. When you do the all-line analysis, as I show you in the Oosterweg, you need just to draw the polygons around the buildings. Sometimes you can aggregate a map from GIS, but when you want to analyze 3D, you also need to add the building height, volumes. And I think it asks about 4, 5, 6 more time to prepare the base map. I think that is the problem why it's still not applied yet. Because I wanted to use this three-dimensional model on space and crime. And also on how women and men use space differently. Like pedestrian subways and when you cover or you have flyovers, how does it affect? So I think there's a big possibility to develop something there. I think they're doing something with it in London, but the user friendliness of the software and the time used to prepare the model, I think that's the biggest obstacle at the moment. But I think maybe because GIS is developing very fast, I think that might be one way of approaching. Buildings with flyovers, things coming under, or how does a shopping mall function where you have several floors, and an open space in the middle. And I think somebody has been trying it on shopping malls, but still, it's not applied on a broader sense. So I see that there's a lot of improvement challenges there on the methodological level.
Thank you.
Thank you, Akimas. I was wondering about what UN Habitat called the city we need instead of the city, just the city. The city we need, the concept of the new city we need. I think it has to do a lot about behavior, but a lot about our environment and climate change also. The problems in the city now, I think the main problem in the city is the climate change. And a lot of work is undergoing on resilience of the city. And I was wondering about this dimension, the environmental dimension. How we can tackle this dimension in space syntax. It is not just behavior, it is not just forms. I think yes, with cities, a lot of things get mixed. You can just say one aspect and ignore the other one. So what's the environment? It's the challenge, the main challenge I think for the city. It's climate change. How space syntax?
That's very good. Thank you for your question. It's tricky because I'm working on that at the moment also. Is what are the spatial features of a sustainable city? And we are dealing with two contradictions. You have the compact city and you have the green city. The compact city is like everybody packed together. So it means short movement routes. You can go by foot rather than use the car. And then you have the green city because green is good for recreation, healthy, and then you have urban sprawl. And that generates car dependency. So I grew up in Norway, and the private car has really taken over there. And in the Netherlands, you have bicycle. Even though it rains a lot, people use the bike. It has also to do with the Dutch stinginess because they don't want to use